Hello, fellow coaches. This is the extended cut version of explaining our new warm-up sequence and how class is going to operate. It's the extended cut because I just finished my first beer because I'm getting ready to go celebrate Web Daddy's birthday here in a little bit. But you guys are welcome to share, per your decision, how much of this with your classes you want to, or how little of it you want to. I'll probably share a lot of it just because it's new and people don't like change, and I want to get their buy-in on things and get them invested in why we're doing this. So when we start classes now, at the dot, people are going to be late, they're going to have to get used to it. We'll start up front because the warm-up will be built into our warm-up sets of the movement for that day. So what I'm calling this is a functional integrated warm-up because we're doing more functional movement patterns that help with the stability or loaded mobility, and it's integrated into the warm-up sets of the movement. So when we meet up front, I will gather the class, I'll say, thank goodness you're all here on time because today we will start our new class format which uses a functional integrated warm-up. The way this is going to work, and first, right now, while I'm talking, this is your time to do any of your mobility that you may want to do as far as dynamic stretching or passive stretching. If you love World's Greatest because you feel like you must do World's Greatest before you squat, bam, now we'll double up on the time that I'm running my mouth so that you can hit World's Greatest or whatever you want to do during this. Then as they start stretching, today's functional integrated warm-up is going to use movements that actually help to build stability in your joints and in your body, as well as mobilize you for the task at hand. The nice thing about these movements is that they don't just warm you up to lift. They're the type of movements that long-term create physiological changes in your muscles and in the stability of your joints to, one, prep you to work out, but also to prevent you from getting injured because you are structurally stable athletes. So these are great movements as exercise sets, not just to warm you up for exercise. So the way this is going to work is once we break, everyone will start with 2 to 3 minutes of cardio, whether that's jumping rope, whether it's a bike, a rower, a ski. You want to look to increase your intensity over the 2 to 3 minutes. So if I'm on a bike, maybe I start at 45 RPMs, I go to 48, 51, 57. This is incredibly important because it's going to increase your core temperature and start to get your muscles warmed up so that this stuff has an actual impact. If you're entirely cold prior to doing this, then your first round is going to be wasted because it's just warming up the body. Whereas if you're already warm, this will have actual impacts on you. After you finish your 2 to 3 minutes of cardio, you'll move into your first round of our mobility sequence for the day. Our functional integrated warm-up looks like this. We'll start with 10 loaded shin boxes. We may want to have the mats out. This is a side note, I won't say this. We may want to have the mats out for these because people's feeble knees will likely hurt when they press them into the ground, but that's up to you if you want to have those out or not. For the loaded shin box, I'm going to take a relatively light weight and I'm going to get into a shin box position on sore shin. So this isn't going to work very well. I'll hold the weight in front of me. This is starting to work on my upper back stability for squatting. From there, fold the legs to the side, drive through the back foot and the front knee to raise up into a top position. Now here's the single most important part of the movement. I'm going to lower myself as slowly as possible, primarily leveraging through that back leg. That's going to work loaded hip internal rotation, at which point I will rotate my legs over, I will rise up on this side, back down, back and forth. It'll end up being 5 per side, 10 total. The MO is very slow. You are trying to control your positions, not flop your legs from side to side and let the kettlebell crush you back down. If we lack the mobility to get into a loaded shin box, no worries. Let's not cram ourselves into positions that have pinching. We will do some post-supported hip airplanes. So hold on to the post as lightly as you can. Think about opening the hip as wide as you can, and then closing the hip as far as you can. This also creates loaded mobility of internal and external rotation. From there, we'll do 8 reverse Nordics. because reverse Nordics are one of the single best movements for creating mobility through our hip flexor and activating our hip flexors for squatting. So I do not have the ability to do these without a band. Some of you may, but we'll sit back, feet are flat on the ground. We want to load into the hip flexors as far as we comfortably can. It will be different for everyone. Press through the feet to come back up. Load back, come back up. If we can do it without a band, that's great. If we need a band, that's great. Remember, there's no movement standard. Go down as far as you are comfortable going. That loaded eccentric will help to open up the hips over time. The final one is going to be single leg deadlifts, floating. This is working on lateral hip stability and contralateral bracing of the core. So for these, if we're working our right leg, we want the kettlebell or dumbbell in our left hand. I'm going to float my foot above the ground. Big breath, brace, fight any rotation, come back, squeeze up, come back, squeeze up. The load is not massively important here. What is important is that I am not rotating at all from side to side. After you finish your first round of the functional integrated warm-up sequence, you're going to go into your first set, warm-up set of your movement for the day. Depending on how that feels, maybe that first set of squats feels great with an empty bar or whatever you're gonna warm up with. You're like, hey, my joints are good. My body is primed. I'm ready to attack this exercise. And then you're done. It works as a gatekeeper set. However, maybe you go to do that first set of back squats with an empty bar, 135, whatever it is, and you're like, man, my hips still feel kind of janky. I don't feel warmed up. Awesome. After that first set, we will then go back to this sequence, and then we'll load some weight onto the bar for our next warm-up set, and we'll hit our warm-up set. Maybe that one feels good. Now we're ready just to continue lifting. Maybe I still feel creaky and beat up, at which point I'll go through this a third time before what is probably my first working set or my final warm-up set before going into the working sets. That way, any given day, maybe you need additional mobility or you don't. You get those checkpoints over the course of your warm-up sets that allow you to maybe to go back to it. We will also likely end up with more lifting time. This is a side note. Lifting time via these prescriptions. So the way this works is if I get all my lifts done and there's still time on the clock for the lifting, boom, go do some more of this, because more of this is always a good thing. So that can be some light accessory work in between our primary and secondary lifts. Then we go into this. This probably doesn't need explanation. I'll put it in the notes, but our progressions are going to look like this. Strength and power is going to work up to one set of 7 back squats at an RPE of 8, 80% max effort. They should have 1 to 2 reps in the tank. A good MO for RPE 8 is we are not grinding out that last rep. There's no danger of failing it. After that, we'll drop down to 85% of what we hit here, not 85% of our 1 rep max. They shouldn't be able to hit that for 7 anyways. 2 to 3 sets of 7, those should be relatively fast. We'll ingrain in them that what we're doing here is contrast training. So moving the bar quickly is the MO on those drop sets, because that's creating the stimulus we're looking for. After that, we'll drop down to 1 AMRAP set, which is also going to be to an RPE 8, so I'll change that on the screen. RPE 8, which means any type of technical breakdown at all, and we're done. We don't want to be grinding through reps here either at 75% of whatever our top rate was. We will superset all 4 to 5 of our sets of back squats with 3 to 5 seated box jumps, which will take place in the vault. I've got benches and boxes back there. That starts sitting on a bench, off the ground, up onto whatever height box we're jumping on. We're looking for a tall landing on that. Not maxing out the box height and trying to contort our feet up onto the box. One thing that I'll drive into my classes on this is we're not doing box jumps so that we can get the greatest max box jump. Yeah, that may be something cool that we do at the end of the cycle is test a box jump, but the MO of this is learning to create force and power quickly. And one of the best ways to do that is by jumping. So that will carry over to our max back squats, cleans, jerks, all of it, because we are aggressively exerting as much force as possible. For the build-in tone on this one, it starts with their sets of back squats. They will do all of these before they move on to their lunges. They'll start with 3 sets of back squats. How many reps? RPE, 80% of what they perceive as their maximal effort on that. 60% is the weight that they're going to use. So everyone has a prescribed weight, not a prescribed number of reps. And they'll use a 3-1-X tempo on their back squats, 3 seconds down, 1 second in the bottom, stand back up. We're using the tempo to create more time under tension and therefore more mechanical tension and a little bit of stretch, because massive bonuses for hypertrophy. After they do all 3 sets of their back squats, they'll move into alternating back rack lunges. Same thing, 3 sets to an RPE of 8 at 40% of their max back squat. I think I have that wrong. I think that's 35% of their max back squat. Again, as they go through these sets, their first set will likely have more reps than their second set and more than their third set. They probably won't sustain it because fatigue will start to accumulate. We're looking for them to hold 2 minutes rest between everything. So from their first set here to their second set, 2 minutes of rest. So the third set, 2 minutes of rest, then 2 minutes of rest before their first set of alternating lunges. Not every 2 minutes on the minute. We're not counting the working duration of the set against their total time. They'll clock themselves when they finish. Start about 2 minutes after that is going to be ideal. Then we'll end up getting to give them more time for lifting than they traditionally do, which is good because we've got a lot of sets, we've got supersets. That way most people will be able to get everything in. If they do finish early, they can hit some more of this to work on their structural stability and their mobility. And then we'll move into build and burn for the second part. While I have this video shooting, I don't think there's anything. Oh, Jefferson ISO might be the only thing that people aren't familiar with. For the Jefferson ISO, not a foot on the box, just on the ground. That is that lunge where I'm just bracing, staying tight, holding that bar between my legs. I prefer that people take these off of a low rack and step it out so that they're not doing a big Jefferson deadlift to get it up to that position. I'll put in a note for a weight on that. All right, sick. Much love. See you all in 3 hours.